Welcome back to From Corporate to Cashflow. We are Andrea Cannon and Liz Schwab, two pharmacists navigating the process of building wealth and time and financial freedom through real estate investing and lending while working our day jobs. Navigating the journey is difficult, but our podcast guests are experts in showing us how it's done. Today, we have a wonderful podcast guest. It is Bella Linchenko, and we are super excited you're here. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited to be here.
Yes, thanks, Bella. I know you, of course, as a very, very talented designer, absolutely tremendous talent. So very excited to get the opportunity to talk with you today. So we would love to hear a little bit more about your journey. What did you maybe go to college for? What were your initial aspirations? Did you have a W-2, not have a W-2? And ultimately, what are you focusing on today?
Absolutely. So my background starts in Mississippi. I'm actually from a very small town there and didn't love it. Always knew I wanted to leave. So my intention was to get my degree and get out. I actually majored in graphic design and marketing. The marketing was for my parents. The graphic design was for me. I always loved art, loved designing, and I knew I could probably make a career out of graphic design versus painting or traditional art styles. So I went into graphic design, and immediately after college, I was given a few job opportunities in the W-2 world, but decided to take a stab at freelance design. And so I moved to Los Angeles, did that for a while. And then when COVID hit and the unpredictability of life happened, and I also met my now husband, he had a W-2 job. And I was like, maybe I could do that too. And he was investing in real estate. And he was like, yeah, you need a W-2 to get a loan. And I was like, oh, that's the only way you can invest. Okay, I'll do the W-2 thing. That sounds interesting. And so I did get a W-2 job. I was working as a graphic designer and then later an art director. I could only stand it for 2 years, though. I'm not going to lie to you. I kind of hated it after the first 6 months. So as I'm sure a lot of you listening probably are feeling that way about your W-2 job. So I quickly started planning an exit. Thankfully, I had a huge springboard and boyfriend assist, if you will, that my husband actually had a wonderful W-2 job and he really enjoyed it. So we kind of made a deal. Hey, I'm going to quit. You're going to stay working and you can give us active income for now. I'm going to take the time while I'm not working to really dive into investing more and be the investing arm of our relationship. So at the time, I thought that meant real estate investing. And prior to quitting, I did actually secure a loan thanks to my W-2 job when interest rates were super low. And I got a great investment property that did supplement our income, allowed us to house hack, and ultimately gave us the platform to really dive into investing more since we executed so well on the first one. So I thought it would just be that easy again, going after another deal once I had all my time back. And I was like, I should become a real estate agent or these things. And I actually went after that. And I have literally never used my real estate license ever, and it just lapsed. And so I don't think that there's a perfect way to do it. But the real shift for us was actually 6 months ago when I finally gained my footing. As a solopreneur, if you will. I started doing short-term rental interior design for not only my own properties, but also for people I was meeting in the investing world. And I realized that I kind of had a knack for it. Interior design is very adjacent to graphic design, and I really enjoyed it. So once I kind of started making a name for myself in that world, I started getting clientele and started making money. Originally, that was not my intention. I was literally just supposed to be finding deals for us to invest in and then raising capital. But instead, I started making money as an interior designer. And my husband was like, hey, you don't need to make money right now. You can just go do other things. I'm like, but it's really fulfilling and I'm actually really enjoying it. So about 6 months ago, when my husband's W-2 job kind of did him dirty a little bit, he had finished this huge project and was kind of expecting this big promotion after it. And then they kind of just passed him over for it. And we were very confused. He wanted feedback. And we'd actually just finished the book Set for Life. We listened to it on audio, which is a Bigger Pockets book. And it talks about how to eventually get out of the W-2 world. But one of the things in the book was about you're going to feel the ceiling one day at your W-2 job. And you want to have the road prepped for you to be able to step out at that time, because that ceiling is going to hold you back from your true potential. And when this happened with his promotion, that was the real big leap of faith, because he decided that he wanted to leave and pursue an entrepreneurial endeavor, and preferably with me. And so we were thinking about starting like a wholesale company or something like that, since I'm in sub 2 and very connected to that world. But then he was like, hey, you're kind of already making money with this interior design thing. What if I just jump in? I can be the integrator to your visionary, and we can actually build this thing into like a real cash flowing business. And so, yeah, 6 months ago, he quit. And that was the real scary, right? No guaranteed income, no active income, just whatever we could sell and whatever we could fulfill on. Thankfully, right when he quit, I promoted the heck out of us and got a lot of clients. But then we realized that the machine of entrepreneurship, of fulfilling, was kind of broken because I was doing things all by myself. So now the last 6 months, we've really started building a foundation of what it's going to look like for us to be able to build this out into a money machine that doesn't wear us thin. So that's kind of where we're at in our entrepreneurial journey and how I got here.
Yeah, that's super interesting. So it sounds like, if I heard you correctly, you lasted very not a long time in your W-2, right? Like it sounds like you're like, yeah, let's get out of here. And Levi, he was accustomed to his W-2, but as you mentioned, at some point you were going to reach that ceiling, and then to reach your kind of like true potential or like your actual desires. It sounds like Levi was kind of shifting more towards that. And so you guys both kind of took the jump at different times, but now ultimately you're both working together entrepreneurially, which is so cute. You guys are just the cutest little entrepreneur couple. So I love that. I love that for you. What do you think has been the biggest like challenge for both of you individually? I know you have, kind of slightly different mindsets. So like for you, and what would you say for Levi too, since he more recently took that jump?
Yeah, I would say the biggest challenge has been working together. Working with your spouse is a whole new level of marriage. There's a lot of different things that can contribute to your arguments and your discussions. And sometimes business discussions turn into personal discussions, and that has turned into arguments. And then you're like, whoa, how did we get here? So I would say for me, it's been navigating how to best work with an integrator that I have love for, and so I have realized that there's a really great mindset shift of being like, we're on the same team. And if we can act like we're on the same team, it's a lot easier, instead of being like, my idea should win or your idea should win, because I think that was kind of hard for me at the beginning. For him, I think it's been really fun. He's been in a W-2 world for like 6 or 7 years. So this is his like first and ever encounter with entrepreneurship. So I think maybe one of the challenges has been like self-managing and making sure that, the to-do list is getting done. And there's a lot of opportunity for him to dive into like the systems and kind of get lost in that, the same way I dive into the creative stuff and get lost in it, but just kind of keeping blinders on ourselves. Like, hey, we got to stay true to the goal here, which is, to ultimately build this into something that we can exit from in 5 or 6 years, because it's either exiting just because we get to step back and the business is running itself, or, eventually even get acquired or something like that. So that's our goal. And there are a lot of challenges we face every day, but we're getting through them.
Oh, yeah, you guys are killing it. You're killing it.
Yeah, no, that's so awesome. And you're kind of touched on this a little bit, but I'd love to hear just a little bit more about, when you make that transition from, your regular job to being an entrepreneur, there's no one really telling you what to do anymore, right? And you have to decide that for yourself. And you kind of touched on a little bit of kind of figuring out and putting those blinders on, what you need to do on a day-to-day basis. But talk to me about like your overall plans and strategies, and how do you stay on track with those? Are you doing weekly meetings, monthly meetings? Not that you're not seeing each other all the time, but you know what I mean? Like specifically to like touch base on those goals. And are you someone who writes things down every day? Do you time block? We'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah. I've figured out a system that works really well for me. And now Levi and I have started to share in this system, and we call it like just long-term planning. I saw a graphic once that was just a big yellow square, and it said, this is your goal for the year. And then it broke that square into like 12 other squares. These are your goals for the month. And then it was like, this is your goal for the week, and then start at 1. So the whole idea is like, we begin with the end in mind. We started with a 5-year plan, and we actually broke that plan into 5 years. Like, okay, what happens in the first year if this is how the 5th year is supposed to go? And, you have to revise on your plans. Like, you can be really good at planning, but even still life happens. So we do a big yearly planning at the beginning of the year. We break that into months. So we do a monthly planning at the beginning of each month, and we do a weekly planning at the beginning of each week. And ultimately, this is how we stay on track. I actually calendar stack my week every week. So we think about all of the things that we're interested in accomplishing as much as we can on a broad level at the beginning of the year and at the beginning of the month. But then life happens, and like sometimes you have things you didn't expect to have to do that week. So we keep like a weekly planning Notion doc, which is just our project management system, that anytime something comes into our brain, like, oh my gosh, did you send that invoice? Oh, can you throw that on the weekly planning so we can make sure to address it next week? So that way nothing falls through the cracks. Like for the beginning, we thought we were doing it well, and we realized a lot of things were falling through the cracks. So that's like our way to like catch the things that come through the cracks. And in terms of like my actual daily planning, like I try to, make sure that I have enough time to get creative. And for me, that's like 2 hours at least. It's really hard for me to truly dive into creative work in less than 2 hours. So I always try to put like 2 hour blocks on like anything where I'm actually designing something. I have at least 2 hours. And then I'm learning now that you really have to protect your time. At the beginning, when we first started, I was like giving away free consultations and, this and that, like sales calls any time of the day. But ultimately, that's really distracting. So I'm starting to enact something I learned from the book, The One Thing, which I just finished reading and I really loved. And that's like to kind of claim the first half of your day for yourself and for working on your business or in your business. And then the second half of the day, giving it to those that you're working with and the meetings that I'm taking. But I've realized that calendar stacking is very, very important to my productivity. It keeps me in my lane. And it ultimately is something that I think is a game changer as an entrepreneur, because you're right, there's no guidebook. No one's keeping you in check. There's no accountability. And we just have to be accountable to ourselves as entrepreneurs realistically.
Yeah, no, that's such good advice for people that are listening to this. And I think it's helpful, even if you still have your W-2 job, your corporate job, just to think about ways to plan and, use the time outside of your work. Just kind of the way you outlined it, right? Maybe that's only a couple of hours rather than the full day, right? But there's still that time. And I love that how you guys have broken it down into the monthly and the weekly meetings, and even more impressed that you started with that full 5-year plan. And so we have the kind of end goal of the 5-year plan with the maybe eventual exit that you have. But what is business going to look like for you and looking like for you this year? Like what kind of client work are you doing? Like tell us like a little bit more about what your goals are for just this year, the near term.
Yeah. So our goals for this year are really to like stabilize income. At the beginning, it was a big journey of getting a client, having to onboard them, and then maybe hiring someone because we couldn't handle all the work. So it's been about creating, just some systemization. I'm not saying that word right. We're creating systems, and ultimately we're trying to implement them so that one, we can predict income better, and ultimately have the right people on staff to be able to fulfill for our clients. And so, yes, we own a short-term rental interior design company. So we're helping people set up their Airbnbs around the country. We work both virtually and in person. We have solutions for DIY designers as well as people who want the whole thing done for them. So it's a lot of logistics planning, but it's really, really fun seeing the opportunities come to life from like a blank room to like some of the coolest Airbnbs in the country. And so that's been really interesting, learning how to systematize something that feels so particular to each person and each problem that we face. But I've realized you can do it. I am a visionary. I don't know how to do that. So thankfully, Levi has been using his integration skills to be like, okay, abstract that one level. Like, oh, you're making a mood board. Could you make a mood board template? I'm like, oh, sure. I never thought of that. And so like, there's a lot of opportunity for us to ultimately, create structure around things that before I just was doing willy-nilly. I like to say I was a chicken with my head cut off, and then Levi came in and like found my head and is like attaching it. And hopefully that will be hopefully, I think I might have lost connection for a second. Hopefully that will be a good way to run our business going forwards. But one other thing that we're doing this year is we are trying to develop into a level 2 business, which just means that we're offloading a lot of the busy work. So that's been something that I didn't even know there were levels of businesses, but apparently there are. And so that's our goal by the end of the year, is to feel like we're not stuck in the busy work.
Yeah, no, that's super interesting. And thanks for sharing that, because obviously it sounds like you've been through several different phases of like learning and implementing and understanding how to better like optimize oh my gosh, Stacey, now I can't say your words, that being efficient, right? And like
Yes.
blocking and everything. So I'm curious, this is kind of a two-part question, but what would you say is like the biggest piece of advice or learning lesson that you've learned in your real estate journey in general? And then more specifically to short-term rentals, because so often I feel like, short-term rentals are kind of like the hot topic, and, everyone thinks they can have a short-term rental, but especially as the market becomes more and more competitive, I would love to hear your thoughts on maybe like pushing back on that, and maybe like some of the main lessons that, like I said, you wish you would have known when you first started out with STRs.
Yeah. Great question. Short-term rentals are definitely an interesting market. It takes a lot of expertise to really win, if you will. There's not as much guaranteed income like a long-term rental. If you have your numbers pretty set, you know exactly what you're going to make every month. Where short-term rentals, everything's pretty volatile. So we at Let's Go Design Co., we like help understand the different revenue drivers, one main one being design as well as amenities and things like that. And we actually, try to help our clients find how they're going to max out their revenue, whether it's more people that they're able to up their guest count, or maybe they're adding a hot tub, or maybe they're just like painting unique colors around the space to create some curb appeal, aka like scroll appeal when people are scrolling through Airbnb and other platforms like that. So yeah, I would say like it definitely takes some experience. If you're going to try it on your own, I wouldn't say you should just go for it. Maybe in 2020, you could have done that because of interest rates and how Airbnb wasn't quite as much of a moneymaker as we all know it to be now. Now it's a lot more thoughtful. You have to really be intentional about what you're creating and who you're creating it for. And so we like to focus on the avatar. Who are we designing the property for? What experience are we giving them? Because it's not just about a stay, it's about curating experiences. So that could be, through the narrative that we pose throughout our property. Maybe it's a mountain house in a ski town. Like, what's the narrative there? Okay, it's a ski group coming in for spring break. Like, let's give them something really incredible in terms of their experience. It's not just a place to stay. We know that they're going to be going up to the mountain every day. So how can we make that experience better? So it's like curating unique moments, both in the design and in how you present the property. So if you're considering doing a short-term rental, I would watch a lot of YouTube videos and definitely reach out to somebody in your local town, maybe at one of your real estate investor meetups, and hear what they're doing to be successful. But I mean, the biggest part of it is going to be making sure your numbers run before you actually invest. So I would be very conscientious of underwriting your deals really wisely, really conservatively, and be okay with cash on cash return numbers that are, in the tens, because that's realistically what you're going to be looking at right now for most deals in today's market with high interest rates. Now, if you can get a creative deal, you might get something way better than that. But in underwriting, I'm always, being conservative. I'm underestimating things. So 10% is decent because it feels like I'm not going to lose anything. So that's why I usually try to do that. But typically when we're actually designing for both ourselves and our clients, we're like blasting through the revenue projections because of the thoughtful design and the ability to actually create really unique spaces that stand out completely from the competitors. And that's really what you're going for. If you want to be like a STR millionaire, you're going to have to just go above and beyond and be ready to put a lot of money in, because it will reward you.
Yeah, I was going to say, I feel like so often I see like the copy and paste approach, right? With decorating or designing STRs where, they have the flooring that they're going to use in every single unit, and like the kitchens all look the same and the bedrooms all look the same. But what I'm hearing from you is like you take your approach of making it very like individualized. It's more like that journey that you really spoke to. And obviously, I think that's definitely more enticing to people. I mean, when you're on sites looking for different places to stay, certainly those are more appealing to me. So obviously, you're using a lot of strategy to optimize these different units that you're designing and such. So I think that's really cool. And obviously it plays into like your whole entire artistic side. The mural behind you, of course, like everything that you do is so beautiful and talented. I can't, everyone should like check out your Instagram and everything that you design, because it's just so beautiful.
Well, thank you.
Of course.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And I think one of the key things with short-term rentals that it sounds like I'm hearing from you is like the days of, just having a spare bedroom and slapping it on Instagram and on Airbnb, excuse me, and expecting to make money are long gone. And, definitely working with a designer to help curate those experiences is a really probably good idea for people who may be looking into that avenue. Do you manage short-term rentals yourself, or are you just doing the design?
We don't manage short-term rentals, don't plan to. We have 3 of our own, and that alone keeps me extremely busy. So we just work on the design, but we have a lot of great connections with some awesome short-term rental managers and can definitely connect our clients with those. But ultimately, managing and designing 2 completely different skill sets, and we know our lane and we're staying in it.
I love that. And it's funny too, because earlier you said, the marketing route that you did at the beginning in your journey was for your parents, but it sounds like all of this comes into that as well, right? Like designing that great experience will then allow the property to be super marketable, even if you're not actually doing the specific marketing yourself, but you're doing that with the marketing in mind, right? You said the scroll stopping kind of design work. That's just really awesome. Thinking about, just kind of your journey in general and thinking about that, if you give one piece of advice in about 30 seconds to someone just starting their own kind of entrepreneurial journey, maybe they're not 100% sure yet about leaving the W-2, but kind of just they're beginning that process, what would that advice be?
The first thing I would say is know where you want to be in 5 years. Even if it is just like, I know I don't want to be here, that's a start. Once you have at least some grasp of what that might look like, and maybe you can't think 5 years ahead, but maybe you can think a year ahead. I would also ask yourself, what are you curious about? Because curiosity is a great indicator of where your passions might lie. A lot of people are like, I don't know my passion yet. So what makes you curious and how can you explore that? And then I would say definitely build a runway for when it is time to finally leave, and have a really great plan in place. Find your mentors and be ready to ride the roller coaster of entrepreneurship, because it is literally so stressful, but it's very rewarding. So I would still recommend.
That's awesome. That's really great. I mean, thinking about, you said like finding your mentors and things like that. You also do a lot of reading, and you've mentioned multiple books in this process. So it sounds like you're networking, you're learning all the things. Like, any other advice for us about how to kind of do that more? Like any tips or tricks you have?
Yes, I would say reading is going to be your best friend, especially as you're transitioning from the W-2 world to the entrepreneurial world or to the investing world, whatever it is that you're choosing to put your time into. I cannot tell you how incredible reading has been for me. I read a book, The Compound Effect, where he talked about the closest you can get to any person on earth is to get inside their brain. And the only way you can do that is through reading about what they wrote. And so I think it's such an opportunity to learn from the masters. I would really get clear on what you want. And then I asked ChatGPT, here's exactly what I'm working on right now. Can you give me a book recommendation that would make this easier, or it would give me more insight on this? So that's where at the beginning, I was just kind of taking referral books, and some of those hit really well. Like Who Not How is one of my favorites. I loved that one. Rocket Fuel is another one. But I think I got a few suggestions that just didn't work for my current time period. And so I maybe picked them up later when it was right for my business or for my journey. But ultimately, I realized that the books that ChatGPT has recommended to me have been so spot on for exactly what I need to learn about. Another great thing I do is I make a list of all the books I've heard referrals wise, and I put them in my phone. And then I just create like a list of here's exactly what I want to read right now. Here's the next book I'm going to read, unless there's something that comes up first. And I just kind of go down that list. And I feel like every time I get a new nugget, I open my mind to the opportunity to learn something literally life-changing, which I think some people are closed off when they hear something. They just don't even want to accept it. I think if you can come into reading with an open mind. And then also mentors, like you were talking about, like that is a lot harder. You can pay for mentorship through coaching. You can join mentorship groups. Those are all great opportunities. But I think the best mentors are the ones you find who are genuinely curious in what you're doing and have some experience. You can find them through, your friend group, maybe through your mentorship group or your local meetups. And also, just being open and telling everyone, hey, I'm looking for a mentor. The more you can state what you're curious about, what you want, what you're hoping to find, the more likely it's going to come to you, because you're literally setting seeds out with everyone you talk to. This is what I'm looking for. And then sure enough, it will come back to you. And occasionally when I feel like, oh my gosh, I don't have very many sales calls right now, or I don't feel very connected to things, I realize it's because I'm not really going out and doing things. So as much as it is important to stay reclusive, read, work hard, it's also very important to get that fuel from others and let them know what you're up to, because you never know who might be interested in what you're doing or might be able to help you. So I would definitely say get out there and network, because it is very true what they say about networking being your net worth.
I love that. And, and I love the way that you kind of approach that as well, because sometimes when people come in, they're looking for a mentor, they haven't done any of the work themselves, right? And they're just looking for someone to kind of hand it to them. You're clearly outlining all the reading, all the background stuff you're doing to improve yourself, as well as working on your business, right? And then you're going into it saying, and I still could use some, assistance. And it's just such a different kind of approach to that I think is super helpful to, get the right person to kind of help you out, right? So that's really cool. Kind of wrapping it up a little bit here. So just thinking about, you guys are building this company, right? And you've got your 5-year plan, and maybe it's an exit, maybe it's selling it off altogether, and just thinking about just like the lifestyle you're going for, right? Our goals are, traveling, getting outside, having fun, all these things along the journey. And we love to end the podcast by just hearing about the ultimate bucket list adventure you've got, or something you're hoping to accomplish this year, something like that.
Yeah, we also love traveling. We actually met while traveling. And so traveling is very sacred to us. We make time for it, even if we feel like there's no time. And we also make time for it, even if we feel like there's no money, because you can always go do something granola. And so ultimately, one of our biggest bucket list trips is skiing in South America during the summer. And we thought we were going to do it this year. It just too many things happening at once and weren't able to make it fly, but it's for sure on the radar in the next few years. We want to, feel like we're coming from the warmth and go into the cold and go ski in the Patagonia Andes Mountains. So that is one of our big bucket list trips. That, and of course Japan for Japao, so we're big skiers. We love it.
Yeah, I feel like you guys you're always out and doing things. It's very inspiring, honestly. Like I feel like every time anyone talks to you, you leave feeling like so motivated, right? Like you're like, oh yeah, like I can accomplish everything. And so like on that same line, because I get asked this question a lot from people that are, stuck in the W-2, or maybe they want to get more involved in real estate, but they don't really know how, and they don't know what they don't know. Like they don't know what freedom and opportunity lies on the other side. So like, do you have like one book, or was there like one event or one thing that happened that really opened you up to be, this positive light of like, wow, there's so many opportunities. Like if you needed to recommend something to someone else so that they could maybe try and change their mindset kind of in the way of this positive thinking that you align with, like what would that be for you?
There's a few things that come to mind immediately. The one book that really was hugely pivotal in my life when I was still a freelancer before I had my W-2 job was the book, The Power of Now. And it pretty much just talks about how important living in the present is, instead of living in the past or the future, because the past or the future don't exist. And if you're there, you're pretty much living out of your mind, not your soul. And so I always try to think about like, how can I take advantage of this moment? Even if it's something I don't necessarily want to do, can I see it in a positive perspective? And I also always try to leave a positive impression on the people I'm with. That's so much so that I would call myself a people pleaser. And every year I choose a word of the year, and I would highly recommend everyone do this as well. It just kind of becomes kind of your guiding light. Instead of a resolution, you can kind of use it as a compass as you make decisions throughout the year. But this year I chose the word candor because I feel like sometimes I let people walk all over me, not in a really bad way, but I just want to be more authentic and frank and honest about how I feel. And so I've been reading the book Let Them as another great referral, Mel Robbins book. And it's talking about how important it is to do what you need to do. And if someone has an opinion about it, just let them, and then let me make the right choice for myself. And so those are two books I would highly recommend if you are looking for positivity and like trying to have that unique mindset that everything can be overcome, or you can overcome anything, and ultimately you can live a positive life.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Thank you so much. I'll definitely be passing that on to some other colleagues and such that have asked the same question. So thank you. And then I know, as you described before, you are involved in, all these different projects, and you guys have a lot going on. You're trying to focus, but obviously you're continuing to scale. So how can our viewers and listeners get in contact with you if they would love to learn from you, work with you, etc.?
Yeah. So the easiest way would probably be Instagram. On Instagram, my handle is Let's Go with Bella. And if you want to check out the work that Let's Go Design Co. does, you can go to letsgodesign.co, and that's our website and portfolio. We'd love to work with you if you're interested in short-term rentals, or if you're just curious about anything with design, send me a DM. I'd be happy to talk about it.
We love it. Well, thanks so much, Bella. We really appreciate you being on here today. It's been absolutely lovely to hear what you've been up to. You were so inspiring. And my favorite part is, like Liz was saying, I can't help but leave with a smile on my face every time I see you and get together with you, or see things that you're doing. It's super inspiring. And so everyone else should definitely check out Bella on social media as well, to make sure that you can follow along too. But thank you so much, everyone, for listening to this episode of From Corporate to Cashflow. We hope you tune in to the next one.